The air above the last bastion of Men Valoria was thick with ash and the sound of cracking granite. This was not a siege of strategy, but of overwhelming, relentless darkness. For 5 long years the Shadow Lord Malachor had consumed the kingdoms, painting the land in perpetual twilight and feeding on the despair of the living. Only Valoria stood, its walls defended by the last remnants of the royal guard in Darien, a man who bore the blood of ancient kings but sought no crown. Darien was a swordsman forged in necessity, his armor dented and grimed, his face a map of exhaustion, yet his blue eyes held a defiant spark. He stood atop the ramparts with Lyra, the queen's last sorceress, watching the tidal wave of Malachor's shadow-wrought legion batter the main gate below. "The gate will fall within the hour, Darien." Lyra's voice was strained, her magic exhausted from weaving defensive wards she knew would not hold. Darien nodded, his gaze fixed on the impossible odds. There was no retreat, no surrender, only the fulfillment of a desperate ancient prophecy. "Then the time has come," he stated, his voice calm amidst the chaos. "The crown must be used, but the choice is mine alone, as the prophecy dictates." The crown he referred to was not the gilded symbol of state, but the unburdened crown, an ancestral relic of immense magical power hidden deep beneath the castle. It possessed a single final use. It could either bind the realm together under a new, powerful king, securing political peace for centuries, or it could unleash a devastating magical wave that would destroy Malachor utterly. To use it for binding meant Darien would have to ascend the throne, accepting the life of a ruler, leaving Malachor to be defeated through conventional and likely failed means. To use it for destruction meant Malachor would be annihilated. But the power of the crown would be spent. Leaving the kingdoms free, but politically shattered and defenseless against the inevitable power vacuum, Darien's heart was the heart of a soldier, not a king. He felt the burden of battle far more keenly than the burden of rule. "Lead the way, Lyra. We must reach the crypt of kings before the shadows break through," Darien commanded, turning his back on the carnage he had defended for so long. Their descent was a desperate race through crumbling stone corridors, the shouts of the dying fading with every turn into the silent, dusty depths. The Crypt of Kings was a place of deep, cold silence, lined with the sarcophagi of millennia of rulers who had, in their time, resisted the dark. In the center, resting on a pedestal carved from pure obsidian, was the unburdened crown, a simple circlet of white metal, glowing faintly with stored silent magic. It was a crown of power, not vanity. It was the legacy of Valoria, waiting for the one heir capable of making the final, painful decision. Lyra approached it reverently, her hands trembling as she lifted the cool, weightless metal. "It calls to you, Darien. It waits for its purpose." Darien took the relic. The moment the circlet touched his skin, a rush of ancestral knowledge flooded his mind, 1,000 voices whispering of duty, sacrifice, and the weight of their choices. He saw the potential futures, the kingdom united under his stern but just rule, or the realm free but chaotic, 1,000 tiny wars replacing the grand conflict. A chilling laugh echoed from the crypt entrance, freezing the blood in Darien's veins. Malachor was already there, anticipating his move. The Shadow Lord was a figure of absolute nullity, a silhouette of terror cloaked in swirling darkness, his eyes twin points of hungry blue fire. "Darien of Valoria," Malachor hissed, his voice like the grinding of stones. "You hold the ultimate choice, and I am here to simplify it for you." Malachor's presence alone seemed to drain the light, the ancient stone of the crypt cracking under the force of his concentrated malice. "Your little sorceress said the gate would fall within the hour. It fell 10 minutes ago. Your people are dying, warrior. Only one choice saves them now." Lyra bravely raised her staff, but Malachor merely waved a hand. She was slammed against the wall, unconscious, her defenses useless. Darien drew his blade, vigilance, the steel humming with the light magic Lyra had gifted it, a small, futile defense against the abyss. "You have miscalculated, Malachor. My choice has always been to see the darkness undone," Darien snarled, moving to attack. "Foolish boy. You rush toward a battle that is already lost. True enemy is not me, but the fragility of your mortal rule." Malachor halted Darien's charge with a silent wave of power, not hurting him, but forcing him to stand still, paralyzed by a binding dread. The Shadow Lord stepped closer, his shadow engulfing Darien, pressing the weight of the crumbling kingdom onto his shoulders. The choice of the unburdened crown is a trick of your ancestors, Darien. They believed power and freedom were mutually exclusive. If you choose to destroy me, your power is spent. You become a hero, yes, but a powerless one, watching the surviving barons tear the land apart until a new shadow rises. If you choose the crown, the political path, you gain the power to rule, to bring order, to secure peace for 1,000 years. And I will merely retreat to the farthest mountains, weak, but not defeated. Leaving you to fight the unending battles of diplomacy and hunger, Malicor's proposal was a chilling, logical trap, forcing Darien to confront the reality that defeating the shadow was only the first, simpler step. Darien felt the seductive pull of the kingly path, the promise of order, of a stable realm, of an end to the ceaseless warfare. He could feel the crown vibrating in his hand, ready to infuse him with the leadership power to unite the fractured realm. But as he looked at the cold fire in Malicor's eyes, Darien remembered the screams from the ramparts above, the sacrifices already made. He remembered his brother, lost in the first wave, who had always dreamt of a kingdom free from the ever-present threat of darkness. The ancestral voices in the crown were insistent, "Rule, bring order, this is the kingly way." Darien felt a deep, profound sorrow, recognizing that the weight of the crown was not the power it gave, but the compromises it demanded. Your freedom is a chaos you do not deserve, Darien. Take the throne. Let the shadow exist as a contained threat, a necessary balance to your rule. The air crackled with Malicor's temptation. The Shadow Lord waiting for the human ambition he knew was in every king. Darien closed his eyes, filtering out the voices of the past and the whispers of the Shadow Lord, listening only to the raw beating of his own heart. His true focus was never the crown, but the end of the threat itself. The people of Valoria didn't need a king in chains. They needed a hero, unburdened by political duty. Opening his eyes, Darien let out a roar that was part defiance, part final acceptance of his terrible purpose. The crown is called Unburdened because it frees its wielder from the duty of political gain. Its true purpose is the ultimate sacrifice. Malicor recoiled, momentarily stunned by the conviction in Darien's voice. "What madness is this? Rule is everything." "No, freedom is everything," Darien corrected, raising the simple circlet high above his head, pointing it directly at the heart of the Shadow Lord. The white metal of the crown began to glow with blinding intensity, draining all the stored magic of the kings before him. The surge was immediate and terrifying. The crypt stones screamed, and the very air was torn apart by the raw, unfettered power. Darien was merely the conduit, channeling the magic into a singular, destructive force, a beam of pure ancient light. He felt his own life force being consumed by the blast, knowing that this action would leave him drained and forever outside the halls of power. Malicor shrieked, a sound of absolute pain and terror, as the light beam struck him, vaporizing the cloak of shadow that defined his being. The Shadow Lord, who had existed only as a concentration of malice, was being utterly unraveled by the purest form of restorative magic. The confrontation lasted only a few heartbeats, but in that time, Darien lived 1,000 lifetimes of agony and resolution. He was emptying the well, shattering the engine of the kingdom's destiny, to buy a single moment of true freedom for the people above. Then, with a final shuddering crack, Malicor was gone, not defeated, but annihilated, leaving only a faint scent of ozone and dust. The unburdened crown went dark. It fell from Darien's grasp, clattering harmlessly against the stone, now just a simple, inert circlet of white metal. Darien himself collapsed, the terrible physical and psychic toll of channeling the power leaving him weak, his vision blurred. He lay there for a long time, the silence of the crypt now absolute. It's interrupted only by the frantic sound of his own breathing. Above, the screaming had stopped. The siege was over, not with a tactical victory, but with the sudden, impossible dissolution of the enemy. When he finally stirred, Lyra was bending over him, her face pale, but her eyes wide with triumphant awe. "You did it, Darien. The shadow is broken. The world is free." She helped him sit up, leaning heavily against the ancient sarcophagus. Darien looked at the inert crown lying on the ground. "It is unburdened now. And so am I. They slowly climbed out of the crypt, finding a world reborn. The sky, though still hazy with smoke, was no longer oppressed by Malicor's shadow magic. The remaining soldiers, exhausted and bewildered, stood among the broken walls, realizing the fight had simply ceased. They saw Darien leaning on Lyra, his armor scratched, carrying not a sword, but the empty shell of the crown. Word spread through the remnants of the army. The Shadow Lord was gone. Darien, the king's heir, had destroyed him. The people gathered, recognizing the circlet, shouting his name, expecting him to raise the crown and declare himself ruler. Darien held up the naudal metal circlet for all to see. The unburdened crown has fulfilled its final purpose. It has purchased your freedom from the shadow at the cost of its own power. It will never unite the kingdoms politically. He stood before them, a hero stripped of all royal authority, possessing only the power of his sacrifice. The choice I made was to secure your freedom, not my power. You are free of the shadow, but you are also free of a king. The soldiers looked confused, the prospect of freedom without order daunting after years of military structure. You will face years of challenge, of baronial squabbles, of rebuilding from the ground up. Kingdom by kingdom, Darien stated plainly. But you will face it as free men and women, not subjects bound by a magical promise. The burden is no longer mine, but yours to govern yourselves. Lyra watched him, realizing that his choice to forgo political stability for existential freedom was the greatest act of kingship imaginable. He had rejected the crown to become the true hero, understanding that the greatest sacrifice was not dying in combat, but choosing a harder, selfless path. His decision set a profound new precedent, that a true hero's duty is to the ultimate necessary good, regardless of the personal or political cost. Darien did not claim the throne. Instead, he worked tirelessly alongside Lyra, helping the survivors. He delegated authority to local leaders, ensuring food and defense, preparing the realm for the inevitable, decentralized future. He was the first among equals, a guiding light of ethical leadership. But resolutely refusing the title of king, the memory of the choice to shatter the crown's power to shatter the shadow became the foundation of the new, free age. Darien the warrior found a peace he never could have found as king. He walked the land, helping the people he had saved. He was unburdened not just of the magical crown, but of the heavy mantle of political expectation. He and Lyra became the wandering conscience of the land, advising, guiding, and ensuring the memory of Malicor never faded. The kingdoms, as he had predicted, fractured. But they flourished in their chaos, defending their local autonomies fiercely. The greatest battle was won when the last king's heir rejected the easy path of power for the hard road of duty. Darien's story became the legend, the hero who chose a difficult freedom over an effortless reign. He proved that the truest strength lies not in the ability to command, but in the willingness to sacrifice everything, even the promise of stability, for the greater good. The crown remained in the crypt, a silent monument to the day a soldier chose to unburden the world of both tyranny and kingship. He never ruled a kingdom, but he saved a world, and that was the choice that mattered most. The age of heroes had ended, and the age of free men had begun, all thanks to one pivotal decision. Darien's legacy was not a stone monument, but the vibrant, chaotic, and self-governing life of the world he saved. The truest crown, he knew, was the freedom of his own conscience. For more epic tales of heroes, quests, and world-defining battles, be sure to comment, like, share, and subscribe to Storycraft Studio.